Chapter 11, Tapping. Enslavement by illusion is comfortable. It's the liberation by truth that people fear. People prefer their illusions rather than be confronted by the truth. Taking a look at what emotions, perceptions, beliefs, and attitudes we hold on to deep inside is scary for most people. Dr. David Hawkins. Thus far, I've covered 3 of the 4 tools that I mentioned that have helped me to change my thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and emotions, resulting in life-altering growth. Those have been applied kinesiology, understanding emotion, and Chinese medicine. Now let's talk about the 4th, tapping. Tapping is a modern addition to the ancient wisdom of Chinese medicine in the form of a tool to release unwanted emotions from the body. Many of my patients have made positive, life-changing choices after realizing through tapping what was buried within and how impactful it really was on their present health. When we make the unconscious conscious, one of the most empowering things is knowing that we have a choice of what to do with what we have learned about ourselves. It is hard to change things we don't understand or even know exist as a part of a specific health problem. Chinese medicine is a beautiful system of medicine that can help people to heal on so many levels. Applied kinesiology helps to navigate the waters of our subconscious. Once we understand what the problem is, tapping answers the question of, what do we do about it? And how can we let go of the negative stuff that is within us? The very first time I was introduced to tapping was right as I entered into Chinese medical school. I didn't even really know how acupuncture worked all that well. I remember watching a documentary called The Tapping Solution about 10 ordinary people with a plethora of different problems, including PTSD, low back pain, money and abundance issues, addiction, fibromyalgia, weight loss, and other issues. I saw all these people tapping on their faces, and I thought to myself, this has to be one of the most peculiar things I've ever seen, and this is supposed to help people? This documentary showed that by using tapping, you see radical changes in the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state of each person involved. It was remarkable to see. One gentleman had chronic low back pain for 30 years that disappeared in days and healed permanently. Other stories shown in the documentary are just as amazing. Now, after leading hundreds of people through tapping on many different issues and problems, I have seen just as remarkable things happen, not only to patients, but also to myself. The best thing about tapping is that it is super easy to learn, and it's 100% free if you choose to do it on your own. Even after reading this chapter or watching the documentary, you still may not feel comfortable doing it or may put off using it. This is where it is highly recommended to work with someone who can teach you how to use this extraordinary tool as it specifically applies to you. The learning curve is so much faster with someone who helps people tap through their issues for a living. With a skilled practitioner and this tool in hand, be prepared for substantial radical life change that will help you to change your limiting beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and attitudes in your consciousness. Tapping deals largely with emotions. Emotions create thoughts, and the thoughts and beliefs we hold then dictate behavior and the manifestation of problems in our lives and in our bodies. This is why it doesn't matter what your health, relational, or financial problem is. The heart and center of most of our problems have a negative emotional base. This is why tapping has a powerful effect on just about any problem. Through intention, tapping helps your body to let go of the negative emotions and thoughts that are not helping you, and it allows you to start loving yourself more fully. This in turn will bring you more internal peace and healing. Tapping is not a substitute for appropriate medical care. Tapping is not for diagnosing, treating, or curing any disease or health problem. It is just a simple tool to release unwanted emotional energy from the body. Who created tapping? Tapping started with a brilliant gentleman by the name of Dr. Roger Callahan, a psychologist who discovered by accident that tapping could alleviate problems that he had spent years trying to help people with. His book, Tapping the Healer Within, tells us about this discovery and is a mixture of modern psychology and Chinese medicine. Since his discovery, other modalities arose that streamlined the process of tapping and, in my opinion, made it better. The most popular form of tapping is called Emotional Freedom Techniques, or EFT, and I highly recommend books that explore EFT further. Gary Craig, a student of Callahan, is the one who started EFT. Other popular forms of tapping include faster EFT and mental field therapy. They all offer different aspects to tapping and are wonderful to learn about. The one I'm going to teach you how to do is more along the lines of mental field therapy, which was made by Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt because it makes a little more sense to me due to my training in Chinese medicine. I will point out the differences between these in a moment. Most tapping practitioners haven't studied Chinese medicine formally, but knowledge of the medicine is not needed to do tapping. Anyone can learn it quickly and easily. What does tapping do? We've already discussed the 12 major channels of electricity that are stored in the body. The Chinese would say that our emotions are stored energetically within the channels of energy in their corresponding organs. In fact, each organ in Chinese medicine has its own consciousness. Each organ has one particular negative emotion that affects it more than other emotions. Regarding emotional consciousness, for example, the main negative emotion that affects the liver is anger or other emotions in the family of anger, such as hate, frustration, or agitation. The main emotion affecting the kidneys or the adrenal glands is fear, or other emotions of fear, including anxiety, overwhelm, tension, stress, or dread. Tapping involves using our hands to tap on various points on the body that correspond with the 12 major channels and 2 extra channels, the Ren and Du channels, or conception and governing vessel. The 12 major channels correspond with all the major organs in the body and cover virtually every part of the body from head to toe. Think of them as power lines running through the body. The Ren channel runs straight up the middle of the body, starting in the genital area and ending in the mouth. The Du channel starts in the genital area and runs up the spine, over the middle of the head, and ends in the mouth as well, forming a full circuit with the Ren channel. When we tap on these points, combined with the intention of engaging the true reality of what we feel on the inside, our desire to let this negative emotion or thought or belief to go, the body lets go of this emotional energy. Your body will let go of negative energy and allows positive energy to shine forth. When this exchange happens, your body does remarkable things. This process allows love to heal us from deep within. Tapping starters. Let's first talk about a couple of critical things that highlight some differences in tapping, EFT, and mental field therapy. First, with EFT, normally only 2 fingers are used to tap. The index and middle fingers are mostly used. Only 2 meridians of energy run through the index and middle fingers. However, with mental field therapy, or MFT, we use all 5 of the fingers to tap because then we access all 6 meridians that run through the tips of the fingers. Second, with EFT, the tapping is done very rapidly. Tapping on a point can be done as many as 20 to 30 times in 5 seconds. Research done by Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt indicates that tapping this fast is a little too fast for the nervous system. His research indicates that tapping slowly, at the pace of a waltz, is the best speed in which to tap. I must stress, though, that ultimately your intention alone is the strongest thing that will make this process work. Third, in EFT, the first point that is tapped on is on the side of the hand, on what they have nicknamed the karate chop point. In mental field therapy, the first point is on the top of the head. The reason this makes more sense from a Chinese standpoint is that the point on the top of the head is called 100 meetings because 5 meridians intersect at this point. These 5 meridians, combined with the 6 on the hand, total 11 meridians out of the 14. Starting at this point accesses more of the other meridians than starting by the karate chop point on the hand. Fourth, the point sequence in MFT is a little different than EFT. Essentially, all the points are the same with a couple of exceptions in the sequence. Does it matter what points are used in what sequence and the speed at which they are tapped? Research done by Dr. Klinghardt indicates that it does make a difference, although it may not be a huge difference. I haven't observed it making a difference. These 4 differences make sense to me, but at the end of the day, I believe that any tapping is very effective. I highlight these differences because if you read anything about tapping, you are more than likely to see these differences. I wanted you to know what you may be seeing is different. You are more than encouraged to explore the different options in the world of tapping. To learn more, one of the best resources on tapping is The Tapping Solution by Nick Ortner. Now that we have explored some of the differences, let's get into how to actually do it. Putting tapping to use. When tapping, you can use either hand in the following sequence below. First, put all your fingers together in a straight line and make sure they are all touching the body. Then you are ready to begin tapping in the following sequence. Number 1, the top of the head. This point on the very top of the head, almost directly above the ears, take your 2 hands and place one behind the other on an imaginary line that divides the head down the middle. Each finger should be aligned on the imaginary line that runs down the middle of the head. Number 2, eyebrow. Put your pinky finger on the beginning inner edge of the eyebrow closest to the bridge of the nose. Align all of the other fingers over the rest of the eyebrow. Number 3, temple. At the end of the eyebrow in the temple area, tap using all the fingers together over the temple. Number 4, back of the head. The back of the skull bone is called your occiput. Find the edge of your occiput, and right directly under the bone, about 0.5 inches on either side of the spine, is where this point is. Number 5, under the eyes. The point is directly under the pupil of the eye on the bone below the eye. Number 6, under the nose. Put one pinky into the philtrum, the groove directly under the nose and above the upper lip, and put the other pinky slightly off to the side. Remember to continue using all of the fingers. Number 7, under the mouth. Directly under your mouth, in the center, is a groove above the chin. Place one pinky directly in the center and the other pinky slightly off to the side, touching the other pinky. Number 8, under the arms. About 3 to 4 inches directly below the anterior portion of your armpit is where this point is. For women, this point is where the edge of the bra is. I called this the funky chicken point because instead of crossing your arms to hit the point, you want to open up the chest and bring the hands up as high as you can to hit this point. Number 9, under the collarbone or the thymus point. You can do it in the middle of the chest or just under the collarbone, and 2 to 3 inches lateral to the sternum. The breastbone is a depression, and this is the last point in the sequence. When tapping, start at the first point on the top of your head and work your way down until you are at the last point. You should tap at least 9 times on each point at the pace of a slow waltz. After each tapping sequence and tapping through all the points, remember to take a deep diaphragmatic breath in and out. This is very important to remember when processing through emotional things. Breathing in is associated with our ability to breathe in new life, and breathing out with our ability to let things go. Therefore, taking deep breaths is critical in this process. On a humorous note, many people feel silly or even ridiculous tapping on their face and other places. This is a very common experience for many people. In fact, these emotions, while seemingly benign, are negative emotions. And when tapping with someone for the first time, I normally start with tapping on these very emotions. It's okay to feel silly when doing this for the first time. The setup statement. Now that we have learned the tapping points in sequence, we're going to go over what is called the setup statement. Now that we know how to tap, we need to learn how to use tapping to work through our problems. The setup statement gives us a framework that we can use to guide us to tune into what we are working on while also moving towards resolving the issue. The classic setup statement has 2 parts. The first part of the setup statement acknowledges what we feel and think and the state or condition that we are in. The second part of the statement is directive that we use, which moves us towards the healing frequency of love. Here is a simple example of a setup statement. Even though I feel sad because my dog died, I deeply love and accept myself. Other variations exist because some people have a really hard time saying that they deeply love themselves. If one of the following feels more congruent to you, use it. Even though I feel sad because my dog died, I choose to love and accept myself. Or, even though I feel sad because my dog died, I want to love and accept myself. Wanting to love yourself is saying that even though I realize I don't, I really do want to move in this direction. Choosing is a step above this because I may say that even though I don't deeply love myself, I think I can choose to do so at this moment. Deeply loving and accepting yourself may occur right away for some, or it may require some time before you can honestly say this. The first part of the statement is meant to give one the opportunity to acknowledge and take responsibility for the condition, state, thoughts, beliefs, or emotions we have. This is the part where we realize that we may be contributing or participating in the perpetuation of the problem we have. Our tendency as people is to want to blame things and people outside of ourselves for our problems. The setup statement gets us to agree about what the problem truly is. Below are some other examples that could be used to start working through things. Try to state everything in the present moment, because even things from the past are being experienced now. However, if it feels better to state something in the past tense, that is also acceptable. Here are some examples. Even though I am angry about losing my job, even though I feel cheated by what happened in the competition, even though I feel embarrassed by my performance, even though I don't feel good enough to date someone, even though I hate this cancer, even though my lower back hurts so bad, even though I am devastated that my wife or husband left me, even though I am so undisciplined, even though I feel my thighs are enormous, even though I'm so frustrated I live paycheck to paycheck, and then you can state the remaining part of that. I choose to love and accept myself, or I deeply love and accept myself. Tapping can be used on just about everything. Here are some different examples of things we can use tapping for as well. 1, a state, even though my back is killing me. Number 2, a body sensation, even though my stomach aches so bad. Number 3, a condition, even though I have a headache. Number 4, an emotion, even though I feel depressed. Number 5, a thought, even though she doesn't like me. Number 6, a belief system, even though having millions of dollars is wrong. Number 7, attitude, even though I don't feel like cleaning. When establishing a setup statement, it is very important at this point to ask ourselves how intense or strong it feels. Measuring the intensity of the statement will give us feedback in the future after tapping to determine if the intensity has gotten better, worse, or stayed the same. Let's take the example of even though I have a pounding headache and rate the intensity at a 9 out of 10. After a round of tapping, we can ask ourselves if the intensity feels the same, better, or worse. Frequently, after a round or two, the intensity of the feeling associated with our setup statement starts to lessen. However, sometimes people are very unaware of how strong an emotion is within them until they fully access it, which is why we ask if something feels worse after a round of tapping. I was tapping with a woman about a house that she had built from scratch and had been in their family for many years. Due to economic factors, they now had to sell. When I asked her how intense the sadness was that she felt for having to sell it, she said it was a 4 out of 10. So we tapped on this saying, even though I feel sad I have to sell my house, I choose to love and accept myself. Intuitively, I felt it much stronger within her at a 10 out of 10, but didn't comment on this, hoping more of it would come out eventually on its own. After the first round of tapping was completed, I asked her if it was getting better, the same, or worse in intensity. She began to cry, said it got worse, and now rated it as a 9 out of 10. We continued to work through it until the sadness was gone. Always try to measure the intensity of what you are tapping on after each round of tapping. The second part of the tapping statement involves what our true reality is and is a movement towards what we want to experience. If we hold true to the idea that the kingdom of heaven is within us, and that what defines the core of who we are is divine, then we are simply letting go of that which we are not to reveal what we already are, those divine qualities of love and joy and peace. Therefore, to reiterate, one of the common ways to finish the setup statement is by stating the following: I deeply love and accept myself. So if we combine that, we get, even though I have this pounding headache, I deeply love and accept myself. If we have a lot of negative stuff inside concerning a problem we have, this is the primary indicator that we don't love ourselves. By acknowledging the feelings and thoughts we have, and with the intention that we are going to love ourselves, the body will start to let go of the negative energy that surrounds a problem we have. I once had a patient who was anemic. The most prominent symptoms exhibited were fatigue, looking pale, feeling faint at times, and having low blood pressure. The general consciousness of anemia is having a yes but attitude, lack of joy, fear of life, and not feeling good enough. She was raised in a very affluent family that expected a lot from her growing up. Her mother was very demanding with everything she did, and she never felt like she measured up. This squeezed all the joy of living from her, and since she never seemed to do anything right, she ended up fearing life and never did anything new because in the back of her mind was the thought that it would be just another reminder of how she didn't measure up. She was full of bitterness, anger, resentment, and hate towards her mother. She felt a tremendous amount of guilt for not being good enough and shame for being a disappointment to her parents. Here are some of the things we tapped through as many times as needed until the emotions or thoughts left the body. Even though I'm afraid I will never be good enough for my parents, I want to love and accept myself. Even though I feel so exhausted every day carrying all this emotional baggage, I want to love and accept myself. Even though I look pale as a ghost and I feel insecure about my appearance, I want to love and accept myself. Even though I'm angry that they demand so much from me, I choose to love and accept myself. Even though I hate my mother for always demanding things from me, I choose to love and accept myself. Even though I feel guilty for never measuring up and have punished myself all these years, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though I feel so ashamed and hate myself for being a constant disappointment to my parents, I deeply love and accept myself. Before we started tapping through each one of the phrases above, I asked how intense each one felt on a scale from 1 to 10. Normally the answer was at least a 9 out of 10. After every round of tapping, she was asked how intense it felt and whether it felt the same, better, or worse. Normally it would take between 4 to 6 rounds of tapping on each phrase for the intensity to go down to a 1 or a 0. It is very common to blame one's mother or father or someone else for how things have turned out in life. During our formative years, being programmed to believe certain things by our personal experiences is very common. However, as someone grows up, one needs to take responsibility and confront the things that aren't true expressions of what they are on the inside. The truth is that she, like all of us, is powerful, loving, full of joy, and full of peace. The emotions she had felt all her life had mostly drowned out the true essence of herself with the capital S and the divinity that defined her within. When these emotions left her body, she began to feel the light inside of her by feeling lighter, calmer, and more peaceful. This is very common after tapping through some heavy stuff and letting it go. Most of the time, someone has an instant knowing that they feel different. One common question I get with patients at times is the following. Why do I have to say I love and accept myself when it is another person that I am angry at? But I think it's important to understand who the person is that's holding on to the anger. Who is the person that the anger is really affecting? This reminds me of a well-known quote by the Buddha that says, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the only one that gets burned." Anger is not love, joy, or peace. When you're holding on to anger, it really is only affecting you. When you're holding on to anger, you are the only one inhibited from more fully experiencing your true self. This is why it's critical to intend to love and accept yourself, because as you let go of anger, this will happen experientially. Another common thing that happens with tapping is that people like to complicate it. Many times I get patients saying things to me like, "I wanted to tap, but I couldn't remember the words or what to say." Tapping is 99% about intention. If you intend to let something go and don't resist it, then it will release in due time. Your intention to let go is really all you need. When using tapping, it is good to remember to keep things simple. The setup statement is divided into 3 simple things. What are you feeling? Identify the feeling you are experiencing, such as anger, fear, frustration, or sadness. Why do you feel what you feel? Come up with a short 6 to 10 word explanation as to why you feel what you feel, like, "I feel angry because Mike lied to me." Use the last part of the setup statement that feels congruent with you. "I deeply love and accept myself," "I choose to love and accept myself," or "I want to love and accept myself." Add an "even though" at the beginning and you are all ready to tap. Even though I feel angry that Mike lied to me, I choose to love and accept myself. Tap at least 9 times on each point. Once you are done with one point on the body, move on to the next and repeat the same phrase while tapping at least 9 times. After going through all 9 tapping places on the body, stop tapping and take a deep breath. Tap again through this as many times as you need to until you feel the emotion release from your body. Summary. Tapping has many other nuances and ways to delve deeper into your experience of your issue, but making simple setup statements as seen above can account for 60 to 80% of a great tapping experience. My knowledge of tapping was very limited when I started using this tool to release and experience profound healing and freedom. If you doubt that you are doing it right or are not saying the right things, start with, even though I'm doubting that I'm doing the tapping wrong, I choose to love and accept myself. Again, it's not so much the words you use or the things you say, but your intention to stop resisting your emotions, to welcome them, and to watch them release from your body. What follows next is my depression story. I describe why I got depressed and the memories that were associated with feeling so horrible for 11 years. After sharing these stories in subsequent chapters, I talk about how I processed through them with the tools I have explained in this book. AK helped me to identify the memories and the emotions in each memory. Tapping provided me with what I needed to let the emotions go once and for all.